This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how Bitcoin is just fine. Thank you. In these times of price volatility and stress, it's very easy to allow our lizard brains to take over. But I want to make it really clear, Bitcoin is not dead, obviously. It's not broken. It hasn't been hacked, and the Bitcoin network hasn't been crashed or paused. This isn't something like Solana, which has an outage or a pause every couple weeks. And it's not Ethereum, where the blockchain can be rolled back and history can be changed at the behest of the insiders. This is Bitcoin. It runs on its own. It's still cranking out blocks every 9 minutes and 56 seconds. Everything is functioning technically perfectly. So what's been happening? Well, there's been a global repricing of risk assets due to Fed tightening. Bitcoin is still perceived as a risk asset because we are so early in this journey. But there's been this global repricing. It happens even over the weekend, especially over long weekends, to markets that trade 24/7 like Bitcoin and crypto. These long illiquid weekends are made worse by having a bank holiday in the US on Monday. So if you're a Bitcoiner and you want to buy more Bitcoin and you don't have cash sitting on your exchange account, you need to wire in more money, and you're going to be out of luck until Tuesday. So I would suggest this is really exacerbating things. Also, Bitcoin breaking below its all-time high from the last cycle of roughly 20,000. This has created a lot of liquidations because people put their stop losses there and people borrowed Bitcoin with the idea that it would never go below 20,000 again. This was something that I believed as well, and I got that wrong. But nothing is wrong with Bitcoin. The price has been volatile. There's been a lot of liquidations over the weekend. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is actually looking really cheap at this point. It's back to the 200-week moving average, which we've been talking about since the beginning of this year, that it would probably mean revert somewhere down here. As we can see back in March of 2020, once it got down to this 200-week moving average, it really only spent 2 weeks below it. It stayed very close to the line, and it looks like something similar may be happening here. A lot really depends on the Fed at this point. If the Fed takes their foot off the brakes, we could have a huge rally in stocks and risk assets in Bitcoin. If they decide to totally blow up the system until the US Treasury market completely freezes, then we could have some more weeks of pain ahead. But it's very important to pay attention to this difference between the Bitcoin network and the fiat price of the token that runs on that network, which is BTC. Nothing has changed with Bitcoin except its fiat price. It still cannot be stopped by any government. I can still send it to anyone in the world that I want to. I don't need to ask anyone's permission. I can do it over the weekend. I can do it when there's a bank holiday. It also still cannot be debased or diluted. There's the 21 million max supply. And if you think that it can be forked and diluted, you haven't done your research. So I'd encourage you to check out my other videos on this channel. Also, if you're enjoying this video right now, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. That would really help out the channel. So it's important at times like this to remember what you are holding and to understand what you own. There's only one Bitcoin. There's only BTC. And then there's about 19,929 unregistered securities that are in the process of blowing up, being regulated, being stopped by groups like the SEC. Remember a couple months ago when there were people who actually believed that Luna was going to replace Bitcoin? Remember the flippening? That seems like so long ago, but it was really just less than a year ago when so many people on crypto Twitter were convinced that Ethereum was going to surpass Bitcoin in its market cap. If we go to CoinMarketCap, we can see the 19,929 cryptos. When we look at the top ones, we basically see Bitcoin, which is always number one. We see all these stable coins, etc. We see Ethereum as well. As for the Ethereum flippening, we can see up here that Bitcoin dominance is at 43%. ETH dominance is at 14.7%. Again, these are misleading statistics because we have things like stable coins in here. And I always thought that Bitcoin dominance was a flawed metric for many reasons that I talk about in videos on this channel. I'll link to one of them below. But even then, it's funny to see this happening, this blowing up, and there being no flippening. Many scams like Celsius, like Luna, many scams and Ponzi's are in the process of blowing up. Nature is healing, Hopefully these guys like Do Kwon and Celsius's Mashinsky are going to be spending some time in jail soon, as they deserve to do, not because they issued their own cryptos, but because they literally scammed people. They issued unregistered securities and they dumped on them while they dumped on retail, basically. Look in my comments and see how many people are becoming Bitcoin maximalists. This is what I mean by nature is healing. You'll see so many comments where people are finally understanding the importance of holding Bitcoin, only holding Bitcoin, not other cryptocurrencies. There's only Bitcoin. And also the importance of self-custody. You don't lend out your Bitcoin to someone like Do Kwon. You don't lend it out to someone like Celsius's Mashinsky. So the really interesting thing here, though, and I think the bigger picture, is really what has happened to the Bitcoin ecosystem since Bitcoin's fiat US dollar price first hit these levels in 2017. At that point, it was still not clear that Bitcoin was going to make it. I certainly did not understand Bitcoin at that point. I was trading it a little bit, but I really didn't begin to hodl and accumulate Bitcoin until 2019. But back in 2017, when Bitcoin was still trading at roughly these prices, somewhere between 17,000 and 20,000, it was not totally clear that Bitcoin was going to make it. There were still these big block debates. There was this debate over whether Bitcoin's value could be forked away, where you just fork the code and you create something like Bcash, BCH. We can see what has happened to Bcash in Bitcoin terms. It is completely collapsed, and it's now clear that you cannot have these forks. They will not steal value from the network, and they always trend to zero against Bitcoin, as did BSV, as did BCH, and many of these also trend to zero in fiat US dollar terms as well. We can see here, I'll link, I've talked about this many times on the channel, but all cryptos trend to zero against Bitcoin over time. And here's a great image that talks about that. So what I want to point out here is that the Bitcoin ecosystem has made massive strides since 2017 when Bitcoin first hit these prices. We now understand that hard forks, trying to fork away Bitcoin's value or increase the block size, does not work. We've also had amazing developments like El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. This wasn't Ethereum. This wasn't XRP. This wasn't Cardano or any garbage like that. We have the Bitcoin Lightning Network, which uses the same token as a Bitcoin network. This is a layer 2 solution that rides on top of the Bitcoin network and uses the Bitcoin network as the final settlement solution. We can see all these channels all over the world, 80,000 channels, almost 16,000 nodes based on this Lightning Network explored. This sort of stuff did not exist in 2017. Lightning was more an idea, and it certainly hadn't been rolled out globally. It wasn't being used in El Salvador as part of their legal tender program either. And we continue to see Bitcoin adoption. We talked about this when it happened. Strike integrating Shopify to enable merchants to accept Bitcoin payments, and also Strike partnering with some other payment processing solutions to enable merchants to accept Bitcoin. So we have this process where the altcoins are dying, the latest crop. We have a whole new crowd of Bitcoin maximalists who've gotten burned and now understand the importance of holding the only secure digital asset, which is Bitcoin, and holding it using self-custody. Meanwhile, we are still on this path to full global money. I think this is a great example. We're somewhere, this is, I think, an old metric from an old image from 2018, but this traces the evolution of Bitcoin as it moves through these various stages. On the y-axis, we can see its market cap increasing as this happens, and on the x-axis, we can see the passage of time. And due to the Lindy effect, the longer the Bitcoin is around, the longer it will most likely be around. It started off as a digital collectible for nerds and ANCAPs and cypherpunks. It had it withstood various social and technical attacks, and we're somewhere, I think we're a little further up the curve than we were in 2018, but just greater liquidity, higher market cap, more regulatory clarity, more custodial solutions, including self-custody solutions, and we're on our way to it becoming a reliable store of value. We're still so early that it's being priced as a risk asset, and it's falling with stocks and housing and other risk assets. But this is the path. Bitcoin does not emerge fully formed. It's been growing, it's been developing, it's been slowly eating the world. So when people look around and say, well, Bitcoin, I can't buy anything with my Bitcoin, it's not a global medium of exchange. Well, of course it's not yet, though of course you can buy anything you want from any seller who accepts Bitcoin. But this is a process. This is a little bit like saying Amazon's just a bookstore. I can only buy books there. Why should I buy Amazon stock? Once the asset achieves global dominance, its price is already adjusted. So if you waited for Amazon to become really successful and the power of AWS to become apparent, you missed out on the whole rise. So this is how it works. You have to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. And by the time it's a unit of account, it's a global medium of exchange, and it's a global settlement asset, and it's a global reserve asset, the Bitcoin price will be in the millions. And that could still happen sooner than people believe. It is Bitcoin's very volatile. The price is set by the marginal buyer or seller. And when the Fed reverses, probably sometime later this summer, probably the third quarter of 2022, at the latest, we are going to see a massive, massive rally in Bitcoin as it becomes very clear to the markets that, first of all, Bitcoin did not die, along with a lot of other cryptos which died. But also the markets are going to realize that the Fed is trapped and that they can never stop printing again. They can never do austerity. They're going to need to monetize U.S. government spending from now until the end of the Fed. And so don't be discouraged by the fiat price. That is going to take care of itself as well. But it's important to look at these markers: Bitcoin being accepted as legal tender, spreading around the world, Bitcoin miners being more fully dispersed, not just being concentrated in China anymore, the growth of the Lightning Network, the growth of merchant adoption, and other forms of adoption with Bitcoin. And this is the path to a larger market cap as well. Here's a tweet from Scott Melker saying, "You should not cheer for the demise of any platform or person in the crypto space. We are all in this together. And if something fails, it will hurt everyone." I couldn't disagree with this more. And this is something that altcoiners always come out and say when the market is crashing or when they're worried about getting regulated by the SEC or something like this. They're always in it together with us Bitcoiners, except for the other times when they're attacking Bitcoin, calling it outdated tech, calling it old tech, spreading ridiculous FUD about transactions per second and Bitcoin's energy usage and all these things that I've been talking about for over 2 years on this channel, spreading ridiculous FUD, trying to use their money to try to change Bitcoin, to lobby against it, to make it look bad in the press so they can promote their own currencies like Chris Larsen does with XRP. These are bad people. Mashinsky was a bad person. Do Kwon is a bad person. In my opinion, of course, please don't sue me. But these are bad people. We're not in this together. We're completely different. We did not do a pre-mine. We did not start a venture capitalist-backed coin. We didn't exit scam and sell $80 million worth of Luna every month. We didn't stop withdrawals as Celsius did. And these are companies that I warned you about. I can't imagine saying that we're all in this together, because we're clearly not. And we've had the greatest villain of them all, Vitalik, now saying that he doesn't even think cryptos are going to replace fiat money. He's clearly no longer in this for the revolution now that he's made all his money, now that he sold 25% of the Ethereum that he received in the pre-mine. So instead, these people, they're still attacking Bitcoin for its energy usage. They're spreading FUD. In many ways, they're more dangerous and much worse than fiat financial people, because these are people who used to work for Bitcoin, people like Vitalik, and then became traders, as is Chris Larsen of Ripple XRP. So I would say happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. Don't worry about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to be fine. If you hold something else, really understand why you hold it. There's not another cryptocurrency out there that I would be interested in holding besides Bitcoin. And even grouping Bitcoin with cryptos, as we see in these headlines, is a very, very misleading thing to do. If you don't understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, you haven't even started to go down the rabbit hole. But I would say Bitcoin is fine. Turn off your screens, go out there and enjoy your life. and I'll talk to you tomorrow in the next video. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below as well. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow in my next video.